Welcome to Awakening to Your Story. I'm heart expert Alicia Hartzell, and today we're going to talk about interacting versus reacting to the information in your life. We all have things that come up in our day-to-day life, and we get the choice to react to them or interact with them. Sometimes we do better than others, but it's time for us to get conscious around this decision. I love getting questions and comments from you guys, and that is what brought us to this conversation today. I received an email that I wanted to read to you so that we can have a jumping off point for this dialogue. The writer says, I find myself yelling at my kids all of the time. I'm not yelling so that they can hear me. I'm yelling because I'm pissed off at all the stupid stuff they're doing. I get frustrated and I yell. I'm not being my best self in those moments, and I know this. I hate to think what I'm passing on to them. Is there anything that you can do or share to help me be a better version of myself in these frustrated moments? I love it. You know, we all are doing the very best that we can as we go through our life. And I want to take a minute first to acknowledge that we can't be perfect all the time. We're humans and we're learning and we're growing. And I want to talk to this idea too about passing things on to your children. Yes, you're going to pass stuff on to them that might not be perfect or, the best idea of their essential truth, because maybe you're lost in figuring out what your essential truth is. But don't worry. We're all here to learn and to grow and to experience humanity, right? And so you can show up the very best way that you can today and know that it is actually helping gift your children whatever it is that they need to experience for this lifetime, right? So as we look at this interacting versus reacting, I want you to have some steps. I always like to give you 3 steps to take into any kind of circumstance or situation so that you can do the very best for you. So in this idea of interacting versus reacting, the first step is acknowledging where you are. And I like to tag on this part, invoking compassion, right? So your number one thing in this kind of environment is to acknowledge where you are. Anytime you bring consciousness into a situation, it's gonna get better. Now, the first time around, you might not have the strength to do anything but acknowledge, right? You're frustrated at your kids for doing something silly or stupid or whatever it happens to be. And if you can take the time to step in and just acknowledge that you're the frustration, acknowledge that you have a choice to interact versus react, and just figure out where you are and invoke compassion in that place, you're going to be in the right direction, right? You're going to be facing and heading the right direction. Now, as you acknowledge this place, right, wherever it is you happen to be, I want you to understand the process of how reacting works, right? We all have information in our life. I say this a million times over and over again. Everything that happens in your life happens to help you, right? Not to hurt you. And it's all just information. Now, in that place of reaction, it's not neutral. It's a reaction, but it is information. It is there to help you create movement within yourself. So I want you to really wrap your head around this. Your kids being crazy and making you frustrated is actually information for you to help you create movement and expansion of your capacity of heart. Are you with me still? I know, it's kind of an odd way to think about it, but it's so true. as you step into that place of reaction, and now remember, this works. I'm using the example of kids because that's what the person who wrote in used as an example, but I want you to know that this happens, this is the same formula, the same kind of idea for anything. A person you meet in the grocery store, a family member that's driving you crazy, a situation that doesn't go well. Anytime you feel that reaction, right? Your blood pressure rises, you feel that boiling sensation within yourself. That is a reaction, not necessarily to the person, but to information. So you have your heart, right? Your heart has a capacity to experience and express love and joy and possibility and the wonder of life, right? That's your heart. You come into this world completely expanded. You look into a child's eyes and you see it. You see the brilliance and the wonder and the possibility waiting for them. And as they grow, that curiosity is right there at the forefront. Everything that they need is being gifted to them and shown to them, and they are completely mesmerized by whatever's in front of them, right? They're completely present. Now, as you live and grow and you experience life, sometimes those brilliant and beautiful and bold places within you get taught to be small. We pick up untruths along the way that actually dampen or shelter or hide our essential truth. So the truth that we came into this world knowing, the divine connected part of who we are, can get masked along the way by untruths that we adopted. Now, our job as human beings is to continue down this path of humanity, unmasking all the things that we picked up and identifying and learning and creating ownership for that essential truth within our being. This is part of the human experience, the brilliant part of the human experience, right? And so as we're on this path of evolution, as we're on this path of becoming the best human being that we can possibly be, we have to unmask all those untruths so that our capacity of heart can keep growing and moving and expanding, right? All those limitations that we were showed up along the way, that we were shown or gifted, need to be eliminated so that our capacity of heart can expand. Right? As we go back and look at the kids, you yelling at your kids and being frustrated at your kids, that actually might be masking some of their heart, but don't worry. They will have the space to learn and grow too. And as you shift your capacity of heart, as you step into those places of expansion, you're going to gift them a bigger space for unconditional love. And that's going to be the best gift that you could ever give any other human being. So as we acknowledge and understand how the heart works, right? You have your heart space, and you have all those untruths that come in, right? And you're set here with this limited capacity of heart, and your job is to start to grow beyond it, which is why we dream. We dream outside of our capacity so that we can ever expand, right? You're going to have to understand that those limited untruths are going to have to work their way out. And the way that they work their way out is by having things from the outside come in and bump up against them, right? Anything that happens in your space is information. And if that information is not coming in neutral, it's coming in and just showing up as if it's neutral information, you don't have to worry about it. But when information comes in and bumps up against one of those untruths, it creates a reaction. And that reaction is your indicator that there's information in that circumstance that needs healing, that needs to be revisited so that your truth, your essential truth, can come to full light. You still with me? So as you have these experiences, right, your job is to figure out what the information in that is. Acknowledge that it doesn't have to do with them. It has to do with your heart. Figure out what's in that. And then you can interact with it, interact with that information, and interact with the person or experience outside that's showing you, that you're reacting to, that is showing you where to do the work, right? So let's go back to the example with the kids. You have your kids and let's say they're yelling and running around like crazy people. And you have told them and you've told them and you've told them, please sit down, sit down, sit down, do your work, whatever it is. And you start to feel your frustration boiling and you explode and you start yelling. Well, as you do that, if you can, before the frustration gets really big, you can pull back and take a breath and do your own personal work. Am I going to interact with this or react to this? And you get to choose, and you may choose to react, and there's no judgment there. If you need to yell at your kids to get your point across so they listen, so they're safe, or so that they do what they need to do, okay, show up in that way. But acknowledge where you are, and then go back and revisit what it is you reacted to. Because you don't want to be yelling at your kids. That's not the best way for them to learn, and that's not the best feeling to have within yourself, right? So if you look at it, if you go back and look at that, whether you do it before the yelling or after the yelling, what is it that you were reacting to, right? Maybe it was, they're not listening to me, they're not hearing me. Maybe that's where the information is. And if that's the case, take a deep breath in and then start doing the work around that, right? We talk about this in my classes that I teach and the one-on-one sessions that I do. Step in and acknowledge, where is your work in that? What untruth needs to be shifted so that your essential truth can come to light? If it's that you're not being heard, then show up for the pain and the distruth that is associated with that. I'm not worthy of being heard. Okay, I'm not being heard. I'm not worthy of being heard. When was that first time that you experienced that? When was the first time that you had to fight to be heard? Create love in that space. And as you create healing around that truth, you get to then step into an exercise, the next thing that comes up. And as your children are yelling and screaming and running around, if you've created healing in that place for you, then you don't have to yell at your kids to hear you, to know that you are heard, right? When your kids are yelling and screaming, going off like banshees, you can look at them, and if that truth is really shifted within you, you get to look at them and say, I understand where you are. I understand that you have a lot of energy, but I want you to listen. This is what you need to do for now. And if they can't do it, I understand the frustration gets crazy. And as it happens, recognize that it is an exercise to continuously own your truth, right? Step in and create ownership for the fact that I am heard. Every time they go crazy and act like they don't hear you, it is your exercise to step in and go, no, I am heard. I hear my need. I see and I hear my inner voice. And in doing that, you're going to slowly start to create a shift within the space of your own heart. And law of attraction will come into play. That frustration will slowly start to be soothed by this unconditional love that you have within yourself, that you're building within yourself. And then from there is no more reaction, because that wound that said that you could not be heard, that you weren't worthy of being heard, would actually now be healed by the truth, right? Your essential truth would be brought back to light. So as you start to understand how this works, your first step is to what? 1, acknowledge where you are and invoke compassion, right? 2, choose your action. So as you look at how the heart works and how the big picture will eventually play out, if you choose to interact versus react, you have to acknowledge that you get a choice. I am going to choose one or the other. I'm going to choose to react to the situation in front of me, or I'm going to acknowledge it as information and choose to interact with it, right? You have a choice. So 1, acknowledge where you are and invoke compassion. 2, choose. I get to choose whether I interact or react with the situation in front of me. 3, I'm going to use the information. So as you build up this capacity and practice for this internal dialogue, you get to choose where you are, and you acknowledge where you are, you get to choose where you are, and then you actually get to do something about it, right? Even if you choose to react, your job is to then go back and utilize the information in front of you. The problem is if we don't, the volume gets jacked up really loud because our heart needs us to be free in that space. So if you find yourself more frustrated or in a bigger picture, your job is to use the information in front of you. Your heart only will do what it is that you have the capacity to do, right? It's never going to ask you to do something that you don't have the capacity or the drive and longing to create. So step in, utilize the information, right? So the volume doesn't have to get raised. Anytime you're not looking at the wound that needs to be shifted, you're going to call in louder volume so that your heart knows you're going to pay attention, right? So right now, if it's just your kids and you're just frustrated in that space of not being heard, pay attention now. Your heart's showing you, if you've taken the time to type in and write this, not just think about it, if you want action to create movement beyond it, your heart's telling you, you need this. Don't let it escalate to a place of other situations coming in that are going to drive you to that same place of wounding needing to be shifted. So let's go over the actions again, right? First, you acknowledge where you are and you invoke compassion. Second, you actually make the choice to interact versus react. And third, you take that information and you use it. Remember, you are the only you this world is ever going to know. And your essence of life and creation of truth and expression of love are valuable to the table of humanity. If you are ever evolving and ever shifting, those expressions and truths and love get to expand. And that is miraculous. As always, please leave a comment. Email me at alicia@awakeningtoyourstory. Let me know what it is you want me to talk to and talk about, because you are miraculous and a wondrous creature. So until next time, I'm sending you big, big love. For more support, information, and inspiration, join me at awakeningtoyourstory.com.